Perfect. Thank you, Pam. Really excited to have you all join SSRIA today for our second Green Building Technologies Showcase. So some really good information will be presented today. And just a reminder to keep yourself on mute unless you have a question at the end of the presentation. And it's my pleasure to introduce our very first speaker for today, James Freeman from TrustBix. So over to you, James.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Pam and Tanya. Really appreciate being here. We're new as a company to SSRIA, and we're really pleased to be included in the Green Building Technology panel that you're hosting today. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the work we're doing in partnership with another company around energy auditing and monitoring in the agri-food sector. Next slide, please. So just a bit about TrustBix. We're a publicly traded company, been around for a few years in Edmonton here. We've got 30 staff in Canada, mostly again in Edmonton, but some in the US. And what the problem we solve for the agri-food sector is chain of custody validation of information as products move through the food supply chain. So, to give you a real-time example, as consumers, we're all bombarded with claims that are made about food. And the ability to verify and trace those claims right back to, let's say, farm of origin is challenging when you've got a lot of custody transfers. And so that's really the focus area that we have and our software solution solves. Next slide, please. Now, one of the things as we at the broadest level, we focus on sustainable food production. And that's something that should be of interest to all of us, because as the planet warms and as we have more people that we need to feed as we move towards 2050, we need to figure out how to produce more with a smaller footprint. And so the energy intensity of the agri-food sector is becoming increasingly of interest. And there's a lot of discussion around the whole ESG portfolio for major agri-food brands. And what we found in Canada is that the energy intensity of particularly the upstream and midstream parts of the supply chain, so these would be the more intensive upstream operations or the processing facilities, really is not well understood. So, where you might typically use, ret screen or some other tools to profile energy intensity, from NRCan data, we really don't have a good Canadian benchmark database around what does good look like in this sector. There are some benchmarks for downstream at the retail and grocery level, but nothing in the middle. Next slide, please. And the kind of facilities we're talking about can vary dramatically depending on what vertical you're talking about in the agri-food sector. So on the left side of the screen here, you're seeing some building types in the hog production, curtain wall designs, very open facilities. Obviously, there's thermal load even just coming from the animals themselves. You often find, too, that getting access to good meter information on a site is challenging because one meter might serve multiple buildings in a cluster. And so exactly what's driving load is sometimes challenging. The other thing, too, when you think about using some of the energy intensity benchmarking, particularly around area or floor area of the building, well, these operations really do spill outside. And there's energy use outside as well. So it's difficult to quantify what the area might be. Next slide, please. So the next 3 slides, and I'll just go through these fairly quickly here, are tools that we use in partnership with a company called Green Metrics out of Vancouver. And what we do is we take clients through a 3-stage evaluation process. So stage 1 is a solution called Build Aware. And really, it's a straightforward assessment of historical electrical and gas consumption data. Ideally, we would benchmark you against some of the NRCan standards, but obviously, as I've mentioned before, those benchmarks aren't available. There's a quick greenhouse gas analysis. And really, this is sort of the first smell test around you know, is this property and operation likely energy efficient or not? Next slide, please. Level 2 in the analysis is build site. And this would be, I think, more familiar to many of you on the call here. It's very similar to an ASHRAE level 2 audit where you go on site, you're looking at the building envelope, the HVAC and mechanical systems, electrical systems, and you're doing a more detailed audit of plug loads and very specific tactical load analysis. And the purpose here is to ultimately look at energy conservation measures, ECMs, and make recommendations on building retrofits that are possible to reduce your energy footprint. Next slide, please. The final level in our portfolio is BuildSense. This is an IoT solution. It allows you to put a gateway on site and do circuit level monitoring. So on the electrical side of the business, you can get down, get real-time information on instantaneous power requirements, integrate over time to get energy use, and get some analytics about how you might be able to load shape in order to reduce your energy footprint. Next slide, please. So earlier today, in fact, we did a press release that announces our first client for our solution suite, and it's the Sunterra Group. And I think all of you in Alberta would recognize Sunterra as a brand. Sunterra is a great client for us because they really are a vertically integrated operation. They've got production, they've got processing, and they've got retail. And we've been working through a number of properties in their portfolio and have profiled their energy footprint. Again, I've had to blur out some of the details here because, again, we're sitting on some unique information and gaining unique insights about the agri-food sector and what the energy profile would be. But, you know, the typical kind of information that we collect, we do try and normalize energy in gigajoules and area in square meters. We produce the typical kind of graphs that you would see in an analysis, you know, for example, thermal load against heating degree days. We can do greenhouse gas emission calculations. And there's actually a whole suite of other graphs that can be done even at an early stage in the engagement using Build-A-Ware. So that's it. Last slide. If you've got any questions, these are my contact credentials, and happy to follow up with any questions.
Perfect. Thanks, James. Are there any questions for James from anybody in attendance at this time? Feel free to unmute yourself, ask a question, or put it in the chat box.